My name is Joaquín Guzmán, but everyone calls me El Chapo. Why, you ask? Because I am short. It's been my nickname since I was a kid. It means Shorty in Spanish. Even as an adult, I'm only 5 feet 4 inches, so they still call me that. Well then, let's start with my background. I was born on April 4th, 1957, to a poor farmer in Badiraguato, Sinaloa State, Mexico. I grew up in the countryside, 60 miles away from the nearest school. A teacher would come to my house a few times a month to educate me, but I didn't take to schooling. With my father addicted to women and gambling, it fell to me, the eldest son, to support my family. Together with my 4 cousins, we harvested and sold marijuana and poppy seeds. They are often cultivated by farmers in this undeveloped region. Eventually, I'd had enough of my lazy father. I left home to move in with my grandparents and took advantage of the opportunity to be out of Badiraguato. Around the age of 20, I joined the drug cartel my uncle was smuggling for and became a full-time criminal. In the 1970s, I belonged to a drug smuggling organization known as the Guadalajara Cartel, led by a boss named Gallardo. I was a smuggler and overseer for drugs being airlifted to the US-Mexico border. This is when my life began to dramatically change. The boss was a quiet but sharp individual. After watching and learning from him, I could imagine myself at the top someday. I became a man that would shoot a smuggler without question if he was even a second late.
My bad. I won't be late next time. Can you just overlook a 5-minute delay this time? I'm begging you.
Huh? You know someone as cold as me can't forgive this.
That's...
I became known for my strict and ruthless demeanor, earning me the fear of those around me and the trust of the boss. Hey, get rid of the dead body.
Yes, sir.
I considered myself a pretty ruthless guy, but that's what it took to get things done. Before I knew it, I became the boss's personal driver in the early 1980s and was then put in charge of managing the drugs shipped from Colombia to Mexico. You see, between the 1970s and 1980s, the Guadalajara Cartel acted as a middleman for cocaine going from Colombia to the US-Mexico border and developed new smuggling routes connecting the Caribbean Sea and Florida Peninsula. That made the organization explode in size. However, the DEA didn't take this lightly. They sent undercover agents to infiltrate the Mexican mafia and drug cartels. One of them, Kiki Camarena, got in close with the boss. Eventually, in November of 1984, the Mexican army, because of a tip from Camarena, raided a 2,500-acre marijuana field owned by the Guadalajara Cartel and burned $160 million worth of marijuana. The boss discovered Camarena's betrayal, abducted him in February 1985 and tortured him to death. The US government was furious with the situation, and Mexican authorities began a massive investigation to find Camarena's killer. As a result, the boss was arrested in April 1989. The cartel fractured with his arrest, and I ended up as the de facto leader of the Sinaloa Cartel. Between September 19th, 1987 and May 18th, 1990, I smuggled 2 tons of marijuana and 4.7 tons of cocaine into the United States, making a profit of around $1.5 billion. We also transported the drugs to the United States by land instead of by air to reduce the risk of being caught. We used many different ways to transport the drugs, such as smugglers carrying small amounts of drugs on their person, or hiding the drugs in cans of chili peppers or fire extinguishers and moving them by train or truck. Furthermore, we developed an elaborate system of tunnels to move drugs under the US-Mexico border. I became renowned for my transportation speed. I could get anything from Mexico to the US within 48 hours. Digging the tunnels was my idea, but we didn't only use them for drugs. What else did you use them for? Calm down, we'll get there. The DEA and Mexican authorities put aside their bad blood to seriously start looking for me. And by pure coincidence, I ended up getting arrested in Guadalajara in 1993. I was sentenced to 20 years in prison for murder and drug smuggling and was sent to Puente Grande prison in the state of Jalisco. However, in January 2001, I hid in a laundry cart and successfully escaped from prison. It took a lot of money to pull off and involved bribes to 7 to 8 guards. It was a serious jailbreak that cost $3 million to pull off. I was fearless, changing into a prison guard's uniform and leaving out the front door. After I broke out, I formed a coalition with some of the other big drug lords, forming an unbeatable super cartel. The US Treasury Department has speculated that I was the boss of the world's largest drug smuggling organization. Well, they were right about that. During this time, Mexican and US authorities were especially after me, offering a $5 million and a $3.8 million reward for my capture respectively. I stayed on the run, but got nabbed again on February 22nd, 2014, by a joint operation of the Mexican army and the US authorities. They detained me in a high-rise apartment in Mazatlan, Sinaloa, Mexico. I was imprisoned again, this time in El Altiplano prison, which is known for its high security. I was kept in a cell under 24-hour surveillance. All of my letters were inspected and censored. I couldn't think of a way to escape. However, my allies in the drug cartel, still on the outside, knew which cell I was being kept in. And well, needless to say, as a well-known drug lord, I had money. The profits I earned from drug trafficking amounted to about $1 billion. The first time I escaped cost me $3 million, and the second time would cost me $60 million. I chose to use an underground tunnel for the second escape. First, I bought a plot of land a block away from the prison. Then, I had a building constructed to hide the holes. The building was really just a set of walls and a roof and nothing inside. That's all I needed to hide the tunnel excavation. It took about a year for my subordinates to dig out the 1-mile tunnel. It went all the way from the hole dug in that building to a connecting hole in the prison. The hole was directly under my cell. The hole was about 30 feet deep, and upon descending there was a tunnel less than 6 feet tall and 3 feet wide. Ventilation pipes and wires ran through the tunnel, and the modified motorcycle used for hauling earth had been left behind with 2 loads of cargo. A few days before the jailbreak, drilling began at the pipeline near the construction site. A few prisoners complained about the noise. With the tunnel extending directly under my cell, the drilling provided camouflage to hide the sound of their vertical digging. It seems they only used pickaxes and shovels instead of machines to prevent excess noise. Since I am the drug lord El Chapo, it was imperative they rescue me as soon as possible. It was 8:52 p.m., July 11th, 2015. 1 year and 5 months had passed since I was imprisoned. This was the day of my escape. Much like the first time, I bought off some of the guards. I disappeared into the shower room, a blind spot for the surveillance cameras. From the showers, I descended into the tunnel. At 9 p.m., I disappeared from my cell. There was a getaway bike waiting for me in the tunnel, and I was out in 3 minutes.
Ha! Perfect execution!
Sure, it cost $60 million, but I had escaped yet again. Unfortunately, I wouldn't stay free for long. On January 8th, 2016, after a shootout with authorities who had rushed to my home turf in Sinaloa, central Mexico, I tried to hide in a tunnel. But when I encountered more police down there, I attempted to exit through a manhole where another officer was waiting for me. A jury from New York District Court convicted me of all 10 charges I was accused of, including drug trafficking to the United States. And on July 17, 2019, the Federal District Court sentenced me to life in prison without the possibility of parole and ordered me to pay a fine of $12.6 billion. I was imprisoned in ADX Florence prison in Florence, Colorado on July 19th that same year. I am still serving my sentence there. They call the prison the Alcatraz of the Rocky Mountains. It's one of the most secure prisons in the United States, and no one has ever escaped. Even so, I hope to escape someday. The world is waiting for me.
My last 2 escapes made a fool of the Mexican government and made me a hero to the people on the streets. I had my own fervent supporters because I gave jobs to the poor and helped them faster than the government could whenever there was a natural disaster. I am like a cultural icon. There were protests the last time I was caught, and people were selling t-shirts saying, "Good luck on your 3rd jailbreak." I am often the subject of local Mexican narco corrido music, where the tune is Mexican folk style but the lyrics are more gangsta rap in nature, and famous singers make songs to cheer me on.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. This YouTube channel introduces stories of various genres, including shocking news from unsolved cases from around the world, the biography of great men, mysterious stories from Asia, and more, all in the form of comics. You'll find plenty of content that appeals to your intellectual curiosity.